This is
Yep.
cool.
Jacob, all yours.
This is exciting. So where I guess I don't quite know the whole background on this, but like where are we wanting to start? Is this with Temasek in mind? Is that right?
Yeah, so basically it's really to train us on how do we set up SSO from scratch, like what kind of
From
information is
scratch?
needed.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
then we can relate that with Temasek when it comes to that. Because basically for Temasek, SSO has been set up. It's just that we need
Yeah.
to create another group for them. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Maybe I'll still use their environment then as like the example. Is that cool?
Yeah, fine. We can use their test. Okay, if we go to production, will it cause any problem?
I'll look at their production, but I won't make any changes to it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Is that cool?
Yep.
Give me a minute. Uh, is it just TP timetabling system? Is that?
Yes. They call it
Oh
TV
yeah.
timetabling because I
Okay.
don't know why they don't want to do Temasek.
Yeah, what the hell? Okay.
I don't know,
Anyway,
eh?
doesn't matter.
It's fine.
Uh,
That's just the way they work.
all good. All good. All good. Okay, let me share my screen.
Yep.
And by the way, I don't Kyle and is it Rao? How do you say your name?
Rauf.
Ralph. Okay, nice.
Yeah,
Okay. Like it said. Nice to meet you. I'm
nice to
Jacob
meet you
from
too.
Time Edit.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's see. So, can you all see my screen?
Yep.
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 So we're in Temasek's environment. The way if you're wanting to set up SSO from scratch, you obviously are not obviously. Are you aware of the fact that in order to set up SSO, you need to provide metadata and we need to receive metadata? Are you all aware of that?
Yep, I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. So to provide that metadata, um, you need to have some information. The way that we typically do it is that we have an old template, and this is pretty ridiculous, I think, but this is just what we have to do. We have like an old template, and we just put the whatever the existing customer's information is in that template. So if you haven't seen this before, I can. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my whole screen. 1 minute. Share my whole desktop. So this is another client's metadata, but you can put in any other clients in the future if you want. So we've got this
Hmm.
entity ID, and what I typically do is I would go through if whatever the template was, or I mean, in this case it's transport one. I would just go and find everywhere that transport was mentioned, and I would replace it with whatever the next client's information is. Now, this is the entity ID. The entity ID can be anything that you want as long as it's unique. Now, that being said, it should probably be something that applies to the client. So I typically just use this SAML2 at the end and then still just use the entire URL that they were already using with time edit. But it can be
Hmm.
whatever you want it to be. So it's important to know that when you're providing this to the client, doesn't matter. You just need to know that it's unique and you need to remember what it is, or you need to know what it is because we're going to use it later.
Mm.
But it's
Cool.
best to generally keep to a specific format, right? Like for example,
I would always keep it like
timeedit.net.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after the timeedit.net slash, then you just add the client's
Exactly.
environment.
Yep. So then, for Temasek's case, right? Like I would come back here and I would add this customer signature instead. Right.
Okay.
But yes, you're totally right, Edmund. I mean, definitely, I would keep it to some sort of standard. I just want you to know it really doesn't matter what you make it here, other than it needs to be unique, and you need to remember what it is because you're going to need to put it in later.
Okay.
But yes, keep it to a standard. Absolutely. Cool. Um, Now there's a few other places though that needs to be updated. So if I looked for transport, you see it's also down here too. So that's not the only place that you'd want to replace this. That's why I typically, if I have, and I can provide you one of these templates too. I would typically do a find and say, all right, find me everywhere that transport is mentioned. because then that kind of tells me, oh, okay, these are the two places that I need to replace that with whatever the next client's signature is.
You mean this particular metadata template is reused for every client?
It is, because this certificate is the same.
Oh. And this certificate doesn't expire?
It doesn't expire, no.
But I mean, is there a security protocol in place at time edit that this license should be replaced every 6 months or a year or so?
Good question, Edmund. I'm not sure. All I know is that it doesn't expire. Like you can use this over and over again. I mean, that the client needs to make sure that they've accepted this as well. But yeah, I'm not aware of anything to replace this.
Typically for some of this integration and even for SSO, I believe the normal practice is that they will replace the license every year. Obviously, this is for security reasons. You don't want to keep it the same old, same old. So even like 10-year-old system,
No,
still using the same license. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, I do. I don't know. I'm trying to think how this could work where we don't have to, but I've been using the same one for the 3 years that I've been here.
Maybe this should be brought up for review because one of the security concerns is that certificate don't refresh. So that's the problem.
Yeah, I can ask.
Yeah.
Sorry. Was somebody else going to say something?
No, I think you could ask. I think it was a lady, right? Was in charge of security.
Linda?
Yeah, Linda. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll ask. Good question. I've actually thought about it before, but then I've done this. Time has moved on, and I have not come back to it. Nobody's brought it up to us. So
Yeah, because not
I
everybody is.
guess they don't know that we're using this with everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that in Singapore, cybersecurity is one of the key topic, and they are
Yeah.
always
True.
coming to this. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
that's the reason how we keep ourselves vigilant. I think we got to be very clear on this so that when
Yeah.
the customer says, when time edit says we are definitely secure, then they believe because we have all these check and balances in place.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. I totally agree. I'll follow up. Give me a
Okay,
minute.
thanks.
Let me take a note really quick. Because I'm curious as well. I don't quite see how it's that secure if that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see what I can find out for you guys.
Right.
But at
Thanks.
any rate, the way that it works currently is that it is as simple as just replacing the entity IDs basically and making sure that they're unique to the client that you're sending them to. And then the other thing for you all is this callback. So I mean, and what I would do, I mean, this actually is the same. I think it would just be actually I need to find out you guys have a different one than we do, but and in the template that I provide you, I'll change it to whatever yours is. But there is a different callback for you guys as well.
Okay. So these are the few places: the entity, the location.
Exactly. But I mean, the location, you probably wouldn't ever have to change either, because once I can and again, I'll give you a template. When I give you the template, I'll give you your Singapore
Okay.
/ Malaysia one, and then that way you don't have to worry about that. It should just be the entity IDs.
Okay.
And then this location. Sorry, maybe that was the one that you were talking about.
Yep.
Cool. So that's the first step, is getting our metadata set up and provided to them. So that's this file. Usually they can just import this and it will set the majority of the parameters up for you, and hopefully you can just have a simple connection when we get to the next part. You still might need to help troubleshoot. And I'm actually doing this with this client right now, which is why I have this fresh to look at. Is this has gotten us close, but we're still struggling a bit.
So typically we fill up where we have to adjust the data where you showed us, and then we send this file to the client
Mhm.
for them to
Yep,
load
it's
into
important.
that.
Yep, it's important that this is just a text file usually as well. So sometimes you might, depending on what computer you use or type of computer you're using and what application you're using, maybe it gets saved as a rich text file. It needs to just be text usually for
Okay, I
them
got you.
to
Like
be
a
able to
notepad
import.
kind of file, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you did it in Notepad, I think you'd be fine. So just be aware. Sometimes I've sent it and it's been an RTF file, and I've gotten yelled at before for that. So um the other thing to be aware of is that sometimes when you send this, because it has XML in it, it gets picked up by their junk mail, and it won't let them open it. So you might need to play around. Like I've had to play around with other ways of sending to them sometimes, to send them like a link to a file to download. So
So you could
just
just
be
zip it up.
aware. Well, yeah, or zip it up. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So usually, I mean, I usually send it as a text file first, and then if for whatever reason they didn't get it, then it's about zip it up or do some, give them a link to go download it somewhere else.
Okay.
But usually it works just as a text file. So that's providing it to them. Then once they've gotten everything set up, they should provide a file exactly like this, but back. And this time it has their entity ID and their certificate. Their certificate is probably something unique, or if not, then it's something that they're using for everybody else as well. But we need that information too. So once you've given them our metadata, you need to get some metadata back from them too. It's an
So it's an
exchange.
exchange. Okay. Got you.
Make sense?
Mm.
Then once you've gotten that far, then it's about coming into the admin screen, which is what we're in here. You're going to come to your user management. You're going to go to auth configs. And in this case, we've already got some, but we can set another one up and you'd hit add. I'm not going to do that right now just because I don't want to do that in the production environment. But once you hit add, you're going to end up with we'd end up with a fourth line here. I'll just go to one they already have to begin with. It will be inactive, so you need to activate it. You don't need to worry about doing that probably to begin with, because you need to put a bunch of information in here first.
Mm.
You need to choose which applications are going to use SSO. So I don't know. In their case, they're only using viewer and reserve. And actually, I would say you can't use you can't use SSO for any of the API. So this really doesn't need to be active, but it's probably just been done erroneously. But you can choose other modules that can use it. So remember in V3, which you're all on now, core, they could log in via SSO. So you choose which applications. And basically what that means is that let me come back. When we come into this screen, right? What that means is do you get, whoops, I'm already logged in. Let me actually go to an incognito window. What it means is, are you going to get SSL options here or not? Right.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna have SSO for their TP scheduler.
like for core,
Hmm.
yep. So right now you do get, oh, they already have sign in with SSO staff turned on. Does that make sense?
I don't know, like normally when they go to authentication, do they have to pick one of these before they can authenticate SSO, or the SSO will pick it up automatically?
So if they pick this one, this is not SSO, this is the
No,
TE
this is
IDP.
LDP,
So
I know, right?
yep. So then this one, what this will do, I can click it, is it's going to take me through to the actual Temasek
Okay,
SSO.
so they still have to choose their relevant groups before they go into the sign-on.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Do you think that's an issue?
I think that's fine. So I think actually we can do the config right now as you're doing it, right? Because we're just gonna add in another sign-on. It's just that they have to set it up at their end for the claim
Yeah.
rules, right?
Okay. I think that we'll get to that, Edmund. I think I know what you're talking about there. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
So at any rate, what you're choosing, if I come back here,
Mm.
what you're choosing is, are they going to get this option back here? are they going to get the option to log in via SSO? And the way that you get this and not just the sign in with time edit account is by saying which applications are enabled. Okay.
Mm.
So you've got, this is a student, but if I come to staff, you can see staff's got core autopilot. And again, you actually don't need it for these. So it's just core. And we should make it that you can't even select them, but you don't need it for activity manager and for
I
SOAP,
find
for
it strange,
example.
right? That there is staff SSO, then they have viewer, they have core, everything. But I
Mhm.
guess when they click on it, some of them can't get to core. So it's
Well, they
something
wouldn't be
that
able to. Exactly. Yes. It depends on what we're going to get to in the rest of the
ah
configuration. Sorry.
okay.
Is it cool? Or does that answer your question for now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So we can still further refine the access.
you can. Exactly. So
Mm.
beyond the applications that you're enabling it for, we need to go back to the actual configuration. So this is where everything that we were providing and exchanging in that metadata is going to start to come into play. So the time edit entity ID, this is whatever that entity ID was that you decided to make when you sent that to them. So that's what you sent to them, right? So we actually said that it was going to be this SAML2 entity ID. So that's what we would need to put in this field here.
But in
And
this case,
again,
this is like that now.
exactly. And this has already been done. So it's just this TP dash general dash SP is the main thing. And I mean, you've got your SG underscore TP as well. So very, very unique for sure. But going forward, and look, we even for us for all of time edit, like everybody does something different here. You should standardize this. Come up with like do the same thing for every client. Their URLs are already unique. So just put the URL in here. But at any rate, doesn't matter what this is. It just needs to match what you gave the client in the
Mm.
metadata that you provided to them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that's all I'm calling out is if you go to set this up and you're like, oh, what was the entity ID? You just need to go back to the metadata that you provided. It doesn't matter what it was. It needs to be whatever you provided to them. Cool. So
Mm.
you can't make it up at this stage because you made it up when you provided it to them. So if this doesn't match, then you're not going to have a successful connection. Then you have the IDP entity ID. So to be honest, now that we have ChatGPT, that's my best friend for this. I typically take the metadata that they provide back to us, and I just copy and paste that into ChatGPT, and I say, go and find me the entity ID and the metadata the entry point URL and the public key. It's very easy to find these. It's just like they're going to give you back the metadata the exact same way. It will say entity ID equals this. It's going to have the certificate the exact same way. And then it'll probably have a couple. The one that can be tricky is the entry point URL, because you could have a couple of different entry point URLs. And this is the thing that I'll tell you, you might need to play around with this with the client to figure out which one of them is the one that actually works between all of the settings that they've set up on their end. And then we actually don't have very many settings that we can set up on our end. So it will depend, are they pushing information? Is there binding? You might need to play around with turning this on, but I've only had to do this with one client. So it doesn't look like we've had to do it with Temasek either. You might need to turn this on, but in most cases, this needs to be off. So I would always default to these being off. And it's probably just about playing around with what's that entry point URL. Their public key is usually quite easy to find. It's whatever's between, that and this. So it will always, just like our metadata to them, their metadata back will have this X509 certificate, and this is what you're going to be putting in that IDP public key area.
Mm. Okay.
Cool. But yeah, I think this is typically the thing that you need to play around with figuring out what the actual information is. And if I pull up transports data that they sent back to me, maybe I have it in an email. Hold on. Just show you it's not always the easiest to find, but that's where I try and use now that we have AI to help us. It can sometimes help you find the exact one that's right. And there's probably privacy concerns with that too, but oh, I don't want to open it. So this is the metadata that came back from a client, right? So I mean, it looks similar. It's not following all the tabbing and whatnot. So I mean, it can be really hard to go through and find this. But the fact is, they have the same information in here that we provided to them as well. And you're going to get to where there's information like the logout, the similar to this callback URL that we had here, and that's usually where their entry point is as well. So it is about, I think it's this right here, ends up becoming their entry point in their case. So it can be it's kind of difficult to find, but you just need to come through. Like there are probably other applications that you can use to put this in so that it like spaces it out nicer. I've seen this comes back many different ways, to be honest, from what I've seen from clients, but it is just about I think copying and pasting this, and I find like ChatGPT does a very good job of giving you all the information that you need. I usually just say, give me the IDP entity ID, the IDP. If they've given you a URL, that can be really useful because you can actually just say autofill from that, and it will actually go and find based off the metadata URL what the entry point is and what the public key is too. It doesn't always work though, I will say. So I think it's good to know how to go through here and see what this particular one that this client gave me is not very nice because it's not like my file where we've got all the different tabs and stuff.
But
So it's
wouldn't the
hard.
client know where is the entry point?
Sorry, say that again.
Wouldn't the client know where is the entry point URL? I mean, this file is from them, right?
This file's from them, yeah.
So they should know what they have given you. Or you mean they don't know as well? How did they generate this one?
Well, you could ask them to when they send it back to just. I mean, to be honest, you don't need their metadata back. You just need to know this stuff. So I mean, you could say, "Hey, just tell me what your entity ID is, what your entry point URL is, and I just need to know your public key." And then they could just provide that back to you. I've tried to do that with clients before, and they don't know. Like, it's like you're speaking gibberish to them. So
And
is
then
that what is that what
how did they generate that metadata file for you? They generate from their system or their
usually?
IT guy give it to them?
Yeah, usually, well, so usually that's a good question, Edmund. Usually, I think you're dealing with the person who's actually the administrator or administrator, sorry, for their for their Active Directory or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not dealing with that person, then yeah, they might not be able to help you, and they may not know what it is that you're actually asking in those cases. But usually their system will actually generate that metadata for you. So whether you're dealing with the person who has access to actually input this information and hit that button to generate it, or if you're dealing with somebody who's further removed, uh, that could be. That's usually why we say just give us your metadata, and then if it's the project manager that's dealing with it, like they can just keep saying metadata, metadata, and eventually somebody knows what you're talking about. It sounds crazy, but I mean,
Like the blind leading the blind.
it really, yeah, it's pretty I mean, again, the one that the one that I was just showing you, it's been taking us like 4 weeks, and it's not that hard. I've been able to set up SSO with other clients in like 2 hours as well. And I mean, that's just because it took time with an email back and forth. But it was just like, here's my metadata, here's ours. I went and configured it, and it worked immediately, and it was amazing. So
So it's just the other side not understanding what they needs to give you, lah, right?
yeah, exactly. The problem almost always is on the other side. We don't have too much that we can configure, to be honest. Like they have a lot more that they can require and set up, or
Essentially, these
that
are
they,
just the address, right? These are the addresses of where to call.
yeah,
Things. Mm.
So that's just getting a connection established. Okay. So you need all that to just get your connection established. And I would say a good test of did you establish a connection is being able to click this link and that you get taken to their login.
Right.
Okay. So you get to this stage after that, I say that's really good news. Like you're halfway there.
Mm.
The next step is getting somebody to actually log in. And if you have a login, then great. You can probably expedite this next part quite a bit. Whereas if you need to rely on them to do it, then this is where it could still be really slow. But you need to get somebody to try and log in because you need to be able to see, and I mean they need to be able to see it too potentially, but we need to be able to see in the logs what's going on. So the next thing will be about coming back here to the admin and going to our logs, coming to single sign-on and seeing what's been going on. Did we get a failure? If we got a failure, it's about coming in and looking and seeing, well, what information did we get? So we can see that we got a process was started. Was it the right callback? Yeah, that looks correct. Was the SAML profile received? And I think Edmund, this is kind of where you were getting to, and this is where this is probably what you are wanting to change for Temasek at this stage or add at this stage. Is there's some attributes that are being passed, and based on certain attributes, we're wanting to do certain things. So maybe it's this one down here. I see a title, and I see that we've got FT student, maybe full-time student is what that is. Then maybe we want to do some certain things when somebody logs in and they've got the title FT student. Is that kind of what you're needing to do for Temasek? Is something like that?
Generally, it's not the student, it's the staff here. So when a staff logs in, so they're
Yeah,
differentiating,
yeah, I hear you.
yeah, normal staff and the schedulers, right? So the
Yeah,
scheduler must have something that segregate them from the rest.
yeah. Maybe it's this group as well, which I mean, this is a code that I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
I have
it's
no
gonna be
idea.
group. It's gonna be in the
Yeah,
group. So they have to set up
makes
the group.
sense.
Mm.
Yep, yep, that makes sense. So then the schedulers will belong to a specific group, and we're
Yeah,
going to say, hey, when you find a match with this group, give them core access, for
yes,
example.
that's
Yeah,
right.
cool. That's I'll show you how you do that here in a minute. But
Mm.
that's so I come to the logs after I've established that cool, we're getting a connection here. I come to the logs and I start monitoring to see. I mean, again, if you have access, then great. You try to log in and come and see what happens when you've logged in. If you don't have access, get them to do it. And it's I find it easiest to just do it, get on a call, do it in real time and see what's going on. Because if you're not even getting any of this information, then you can't move on to the next step.
Mm. Okay.
And if you're not getting this information, I mean, again, go back and check everything that you've put in the auth configs and make sure that it all matches. And if you feel pretty confident about that, I mean, they have chances are that it's on their side. They need to. They have a lot more options on their side to be able to turn things off, allow certain things. And usually, if you can get to the person that actually knows what they're doing, they'll see, oh, you're getting that error because, of course, we don't have this set up correctly. We don't have this group set up, for example.
Mm.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably lots of reasons why it wouldn't work at that stage. But I would just say, like, if you're not getting this, then there's no point don't go and move forward with setting anything else up because you need this to be able to kind of move on to the next step. Cool.
Yep.
So once you can prove that you're getting these attributes being passed, so any of these things are an attribute. You've got this claim tenant ID, object identifier, display name. Once you've confirmed that you're getting those, that helps you to get back to it. Here, I'll actually set up another tab. So what you need to do next, which is to come back to, back to the user management, back to auth configs. Let's do staff, open configuration. Now we want to come back down to attribute parsing and permissions. So what you want to do here is I'm going to get these side by side. for the attribute parsing, we need, so when you're creating a user or maintaining users, all of our users have a username, they all have an email address, and they all have a first and last name, or a given name and a last name, right? Usually these attributes are being passed as one of the, or usually these values, sorry, are being passed as one of the attributes in the via the Active Directory as well, right? So we need to come through here, and you need to work with the client if you're doing this brand new to figure out what should the usernames be. Is it true that the usernames are the email address, or is the username actually a code? Does it make more sense that it's, this tenant ID, for example? And it looks like, in Temasek's case, it's the name. So it's actually this thing here, which looks like it's probably the email address.
Yeah, but they don't give the name of the students in their account. The way they set it up is that the name and the email address is one and the same.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And you can have them
But
both be
you
the same.
notice
The
that there
user.
is a given name, right? So there is another field that denotes the student name. Yeah.
Okay.
But the way to
Yeah.
identify is on their name because that's similar to their email address.
Yeah. Gotcha. And that's just true of the student. That's not the same for staff. Is that right, Edmund?
Yeah, you can have a look at staff, I think. Staff will be okay. Let me try Benjamin. Benjamin is definitely not the
Benjamin?
staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just look at Benjamin and then.
So you could see that Benjamin has his
Oh,
proper.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. He has Benjamin. That's great.
Mm. Yeah, like
He's
he's the only Benjamin. But actually he
yeah,
has
exactly. Well, actually, no, maybe he's not, because
there's
this
a
is his
last name
actual
Ben.
email address. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at any rate, what we've done is we've said, okay, we're going to take this attribute here, and that's
Mhm.
the username. Cool.
Mm.
Do you see that there? And then for email address, because the email attribute, every user needs to have an email address as well. The email address attribute here is
Mm.
what we expect to see and what gets created.
Mm.
Is that making sense?
Yep.
So these two could be the same. They both could be email address if you wanted. It's just important. Like, this is literally getting mapped to when you create a user. It's getting mapped to, if I went to Kotlin, for example, it's getting mapped. The username is getting mapped to this field, and the email address is getting mapped to this field.
Mm.
And then the given name is to first name, and then surname to last name. So those four fields that we were looking at before are literally getting used in those fields on the user.
The URL, the schema XML, so those are also standard, is it?
Well, like these.
Yeah, this one, the attribute phasing, this URL is.
No, I mean, it could be very different from client to client. So I mean, sometimes they're really self-explanatory. Like, sometimes this might literally just say username.
So why is this different here?
Well, I think from what I've been able to see, admin, is that it depends on what they've done in their system. I think that they can actually give so I think that the system, like, this is probably the back end name of it. Sometimes they can give it like an alias or something to make it easier to
No,
understand.
what I mean
And
is,
that,
who defines this? This
oh,
schemas.xml soap.org actually comes from TP?
no, exactly. Yes, exactly. It comes from TP. Exactly.
Ah, okay. So it's from them. Then we put it inside here. Okay.
Yeah. And you really only, I mean, you could ask them what the attributes are and what it literally is called beforehand too. And I've tried to do that sometimes, and sometimes you get the right answer. Other times they're like, yeah, it's username. And then I look at the logs and I'm like, I don't see anything that says username here. And they're like, oh, it's this. And I'm like, okay, but that's not username. That's http://
Yeah.
schemas.xml. So like, that's what I was asking for, is what's the, because that's what we need to put in here. So sometimes people know what you're after and are able to give that to you beforehand. Other times they're not, and you need to just wait until you've established that connection, get somebody to log in, and then you can definitively confirm what is it actually called and what do you need to put here.
Okay, so if they don't know, then get them to log in. Then you'll be able to see.
Yeah, I almost always do that anymore, Edmund. Like I don't trust anyone to just give it to me beforehand.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
you
if they give you wrong, and you will know, right? Because they will simply won't authenticate that guy.
yeah, exactly. And it's not that big a deal if it doesn't, but it's just uh anymore. I think more often than not, what I've experienced, people don't know what this is until you go to log in.
Okay.
But it depends. I mean, like I said, sometimes this could be something as simple as, oh, username. We actually call it username. It doesn't have to be this whole HTTP. Sometimes it could literally be just a string of number. It's a code as well, and it's not an address either. So you need the best thing to do is look at the logs and see what has come across here.
Okay.
Cool.
Hey, Raul and Kaya, y'all don't have questions, ah?
No, I understand the one Jacob saying.
Y'all make sure
Sounds
y'all must
good.
know, because you're the guy who will be doing all this setup, I'm
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
because I want to clarify so I also understand.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, don't be afraid. But good if you're understanding as well. There's so far there's nothing too crazy. And I mean, to be honest, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Once you can make the connection, the rest of this I think is actually quite easy and makes a lot of sense. This is where it gets complicated though. Like this is where you can start getting really technical with it. But if you can make the connection and you can start seeing what's being passed to you, now you can start doing some stuff. So these four fields, probably the most important. This is what we use to actually create the user. Not only do we need to create the user, you need to give the users certain permissions now too, right? And we have more information being passed here than just the first name, last name, and username and email address. So the next thing is to start to say, all right, do we need to put a user object on a user? Do you guys know what a user object is?
Nope.
Do you know, Edmund?
Nope.
Oh no. Okay. I thought maybe you were waiting to see if the others knew. So user objects are an object. It could be any object that's in the system that gets applied to a user. And these user objects usually give you special permissions and things like viewer and reserve. So by default, we typically try and put the user object of the staff member on themselves. So keep in mind, and this might sound kind of crazy, most databases have objects that are staff members and then users as well that also happen to be staff members. Yeah. So Edmund, for example, if you worked for TP, you might be scheduled on classes as an object. And when you log in as a user, we need to associate you as the user to you as the object. That's a user object.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So a user object is where the object ties back to the user.
Exactly. So again, it usually happens that most of our clients have staff members as both objects and as users. We have staff members that we have gone and scheduled on certain reservations, and then those same staff members log into Viewer to see their timetable.
Yeah. We
So
TP.
yeah, it makes sense. Most of our clients are doing something like that. And so
Yes.
then we need to leverage the automatic application of user objects to users. So we do that here. So we can say that, hey, based on the email address, we're gonna go and find in the person.staff email if an object exists where this, for Benjamin, for example, if you log in and you have email address, and I'm actually looking to see in their case where mail is. Do we know if this has been set up correctly?
I'm not sure. This wasn't set up by us.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I actually think that this should be this. And the reason for that is that we want to say, although actually maybe maybe it's because we put the question mark.
Yeah, I think so because of the question mark. So the top one I think doesn't make sense, but it follows the second one, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it could be, I'm not going to save this, but usually it would be, whoops, it would be that it should be this here, because we're saying, hey, by the way, anytime that somebody logs in and they have an email address, we want you to go and look in the field person.staff.email, and anywhere you find a match, we want to associate that object to the user.
And
Does that make
what's
sense?
what's the point of that? Why do you want to associate the object with the user?
You want to do that so that when they log into something like viewer, they could go and click on my timetable and see the timetable for just themselves and see it really easily.
Ah, I see. I think the way they do this is that I don't know if you can go out of this. The way
Yep.
one of the authentication is that they go by phasing the external IDs. They look up the external because the
Ah,
external ID is the same as their ID actually. If
okay.
you yeah, not here, not
Like,
here. I think you can go out somewhere, right? When you look up SSO, there's one
yep.
specific configuration where they filter by, or rather they link to the external ID. It's not here,
Oh,
it's
I
not
see
here.
it. Yeah. I think it's actually down here. Yeah.
Is it below? I
Where
don't recall
is
it's
it?
in this particular view.
Yeah, maybe it's not here. I think I do know what you're talking about though. And
Wait, wait,
so,
let me show you. Let me see, go in
okay.
and need to log out first. One sec. It's in, yeah, it's in admin.
I mean, is it this, Edmund? I think we've changed this slightly, but if you don't put a field in here, then it's looking at the external IDs of the object.
Yeah, I think it was under user management. Yeah, it was under user management. So let me click on one of the stuff. Let's say this guy. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen very quick.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. That's what's getting displayed is the external ID of the object. Yes.
Yeah, we were saying the objects is linked to the external ID under the user. So the user
Yeah.
part, we have to show the external ID. If you go to the users,
Exactly.
right, under T admin, under user, if you
Yeah.
click on any specific user, you'll notice that as you scroll down all the way to the end, there's this
Yeah.
thing called external ID.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I'm trying to find.
Yeah,
So I
you
mean,
see?
nobody has one. And I mean, look, it could be because that's not set up correctly. Because I'm not convinced that that's actually set up in a way that would work. But really, we should see that there's probably a SAM SIM TP, right? And really, what that would be doing is it's about coming to the person. And let's just turn on that. And if I search for SAM, we're probably going to see quite a few SAMs. Yep.
Mm.
Oh, and 128. So I mean, I don't know which one
Yeah,
it is,
Sam
but
Sim is right on top.
oh, was
You're
it?
looking at Sam Sim, right? Then just at the bottom. Can you see that?
Oh,
The last
here.
bottom.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't want to add it. Well, sorry, I can, but I won't save it. So then you end up with the external ID of the staff showing up here. Yes. But
Mhm.
effectively, what we can do is via SSO, we can say, put Sam Sim on based on finding the email address. And again, I don't think that this should be mail. This should actually be this whole long
Right.
line here.
Mhm.
And say, all right, well, look in the field person.staff.email. And
Mhm.
if you find a match, put Sam Sim on as that user object, like I just did manually, but it would do that automatically. And then what that means is that when they come into viewer, So if we were to come in here and go to the viewer and look, I don't know if they even have this at TP. No, they don't have a page for it, but they could have a page. Maybe students do.
No,
My
it's student,
personal
then
schedule.
they will directly link to their external ID and then they will just show their own schedule.
Exactly. And that's how it's done.
Currently, it is also like this, you know, based on this config. With the exception for staff. So staff will come in and see their general schedule, but for
Yeah.
student,
Well, do you
they will
see
see,
when I look at
yeah, see,
student,
student
look,
one is
it's
correct.
the right thing. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So
But the
students are
staff one
working.
doesn't do that. The staff
This
one,
one,
because we allow the staff to also see other stuff.
okay.
Hmm.
So, but do you see that? So when I look at student, yep, it's actually that claim. It's the same thing over here. That one makes sense. I think students are working. When I look at staff, this is not the right, that's not the right attribute for
So I
them.
don't
It
think
should
that we are using this actually. For staff, that's why you log in, you will see the general page.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're not using it, then it doesn't really matter. I'd probably remove this thing because it looks to me like somebody tried to configure this, and I would prefer to know it's not configured and it doesn't work.
Okay. So if we just keep it like this, it'll be the generic one. But if I do it like the
Yeah,
way the student is, then the student will log in and straight away get into their timetable.
but yeah, basically what it will do is if it can find a match, it will put the object on the user as it'll put a user object on. So if it can find a match, if it can't find a match, then it doesn't do it, and it still creates the user. It just doesn't assign the user object.
Okay, got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So
So
for TP
so
staff SSO, we shouldn't add anything because this thing doesn't do anything right now,
I
right?
don't think so. And yeah, it doesn't look like you care about it. Or I mean, they don't have a page set up anyway to try and look at it. But if you did want to do it, then it's just about putting this in that
Then they will see
field,
their
and
own
then
only, right?
yeah, exactly. Then they'd be able to see their own.
Yeah, but right now, no, we want them to be able to see others. So that's why we
Yeah.
didn't set it up like that.
Well, and I just want to clarify, they could do both with that. They still could. It really depends. Do you have a My Timetable page set up like you have on Student? You have My Personal Schedule. If you have that, you need to have a user object in order to use that. Now, if you want to be able to look up every other student's timetable too, then it doesn't matter. You could, or let's apply it to staff because I know that students probably shouldn't be able to do that. If a staff member should be able to see their schedule and anyone else's, having a user object doesn't prevent them from seeing everyone else's. It allows them to see just their own.
So I need to create a personal schedule view separate, kind of like a different portal, and then I can create another portal that lets them see others. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I mean, that's what a lot of our clients have done is that they could have a My Timetable view for both students and for staff. And it's just about creating another schedule page in here. And in that schedule page, and I'll go here instead. It's about saying in the admin, okay, you can look at staff members, but I'm only going to show a schedule for a user object. So then in this particular page, if you called the page My Timetable, then what that would mean, Edmund, in your case, is that if this was ticked and if you had been assigned to reservations and if you had yourself as a user object on, then you would only see reservations on that page for yourself.
Right. I believe this is set up like this for student, just not for staff.
Yeah, and it looks like it is. So, I mean, I think I would guess this part's working totally fine. My personal schedule is showing just the students. And I think that's true because this looks correct.
Yeah.
Cool. I think, look, if and when you do come to needing to set this up, maybe we need to come back to it. But I think you're connecting the dots there.
Okay.
So the next and finishing thing, because I also have a meeting here at 5 or in 10 minutes, are the further permissions. So we still have other attributes, right? So there's still this. I can't see the whole thing, but there's this claims/title, right? And if we come over here, it's this. So we've said anytime that you have this title claim, and if it's P-staff, we want to give you some specific permissions, some specific organizations and roles. Are you guys familiar with the organizations and roles? Have you played around with these?
I think who gave us the training before? Was it Martin?
Yeah, I
Martin?
think it was Martin.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because what I asked for
Surely.
previously.
Yeah. And look, if you need more, happy to do more too, because this is getting quite organizations are probably the most
Okay, I think we can
complicated thing.
skip this for now. I get the gist of it. So this is where we
Yeah.
authorize them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
we say you're a part-time staff member.
Yeah, you
If you're
get all
P
these roles.
staff, you get
Mm.
these permissions in
Right.
a nutshell. I think if
Okay.
and when you get to needing to set this up and you need more information about the organizations, we can come back and give you more.
Okay. So I guess for the groups it will be the same lah. Like if you go in and then under schema, claim groups, if they return a specific field, then we will give them additional set of rules.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it looks like you've already got some, right? Like here's a groups one, and it's if you're in this 2864 group, which is not this group, but if you're in this group, you're getting these permissions.
Mm.
And so if you wanted to add a new row, then it's just about saying, all right, we actually have another new group. So let's do that here.
Okay, so
And
that means for us to do this is actually we need to come to here because we need to add this to add another group. So once we identify the groups that they gave us, which is a string of alphanumerics, then we give them the
yep,
proper row assignment and then they should be able to get into core already.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I understand this.
Cool. And I mean, you've got some good ones
Yeah.
for them to start you with so that you can refer back to them as well, which is really good. I think, if you're starting from scratch and you don't have any of these, it can be a bit overwhelming, but you've got some good ones to start with, it looks like.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Just wanna clarify one thing. Under the attribute and values, right? So the value will be pick it up from the logs itself, is it?
Exactly.
Okay.
So from here, right? So P
Mm-hmm.
staff, it's saying look in the schema /claims -title, and cool,
Mm-hmm.
we've got schema and then blah 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 claims -title. Then whatever value, so if it's P staff, it's the value, give them these nodes and roles, give them these permissions. However, if the value is T staff, give them these permissions and values.
What if the condition of the staff that's logging in satisfy more than one condition? Then which row and nodes will it be given?
Well, it depends on what you have ticked here, Edmund. Good question. Do you want, could they have permissions from both? Or should they only have one? So if you want to allow, if they could be part-time staff and teaching staff, then you want to allow multiple affiliations. They can actually, as a user, get given the part-time staff permissions as well as the teaching staff permissions.
Okay, so I understood that. Then now comes the next question: which one overrides which? Because, for example, let's say maybe web entrance, I'm a guest, but if I'm a T staff, if I'm a T staff, my web entrance is a guest. If I'm a P staff, my web entrance could be an admin. So which one take precedence?
Well, whatever one gives you the most permissions. So if you get an admin,
So between the multiple affiliations, you always get the higher one.
Exactly. So in these cases where they have this basically the same email address, whatever it is that's matching them, they're only going to get one user created. And if they get access to, the web entrances guest for one role, but they get the admin for another, well, then they're going to get admin. Admin's the highest, gives you the most privilege. That's the one. Now, as soon as they go back to only being a guest, the next time they log in, they're only going to get the guest access.
Okay, gotcha. Which
Does
is
that
good
answer your question?
because they are being updated. Yeah, their rights are being updated based on what has changed on their data records.
And that's, you can lock that though too. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want that to happen, then you need to make sure that you've locked the user. So once you've given them certain access, or once they've been given access automatically, if you don't want that to ever be updated again, then you need to lock it.
Otherwise, you'll always update. That means you'll always refresh and check. Otherwise, they will
Otherwise,
the last one.
Otherwise, you are always refreshing and checking. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Straightforward.
Cool.
Yeah.
That was very, very quick lesson. I'm happy to do another one. I feel like go away, think about it and think about how you need to apply it for TP, and then I'm happy if we need to, we can do another follow-up.
I think I can do this. At least I know. I think I know already. Kaya
Well, yeah,
and
give it
Rao,
a
are you
shot
okay?
anyway, and like get back to us and let us know what's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaya and Rao, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good.
All right,
Yeah,
because I also got
cool.
another meeting in 4 minutes time. So yes, I guess we are good.
Cool.
We will try and set up the meeting with TP because I more or less got what we need to do already, and I think we can set it up.
Sweet.
If we have any question, then we'll just post it you either on Slack or through email. Then.
Yeah, let us know, and if we need to meet again, happy to meet again too. But we can see what we can do. Just chatting as well.
Sure. I think we are good. Thanks so much, Jacob.
Cool. Thank you
Alright,
guys.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you very
Alright.
much. Appreciate
See
it.
you.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye bye.